The training grounds stretched wide under the rising sun, dust lifting with every step of the cadets, who marched in formation, the air heavy with the sound of boots striking earth and the distant echo of commands. Lena walked among them, her uniform crisp, her expression steady, yet the eyes around her were sharp and filled with doubt. They whispered behind her back, their voices low but cutting with mockery. She is just a cadet, they said, nothing more than a shadow. Among soldiers, Lena kept her silence. Her hands clasped firmly behind her, as if the mocking words were nothing more than wind, yet inside her chest a storm was building. Everywhere she went, the judgment followed her movements in drills measured precise but overlooked. The others laughed whenever she missed a fraction of a beat, ignoring that their own steps faltered more often than hers. The sneers grew louder as the day passed. The cadets, and even some of the junior officers, acted as though her presence was an error, a mistake that would soon be corrected. Lena never spoke back. Her gaze was steady, her resolve quiet, like a blade hidden in the sheath, waiting for the right moment to draw. As the morning turned to noon, the commander stepped forward, his voice carrying across the field. He called for a volunteer to demonstrate the combat readiness drill, a sequence designed to test speed, endurance, and tactical awareness. None moved at first, then the whispers rose again, voices mocking Lena, daring her to step out to humiliate herself. Before them their laughter grew like fire, feeding itself, waiting for her to burn. Lena stood still, her heart beat against her ribs, her fists tightening at her sides. She felt the weight of dozens of eyes pressing on her, a silent demand to either rise or crumble. She was ready to move, ready to step forward into the circle, but before her foot touched the ground a voice cut across the field, sharp and commanding. The voice did not belong to a cadet, it did not belong to an officer in training, it belonged to a Marine, a decorated veteran who had stood silent all morning. Now he rose, tall, his eyes fixed on Lena, and his words froze the air. "Iron Wolf, stand by," he called, and every sound on the field died in that instant. The laughter fell into silence, and the cadets turned with confusion, staring at Lena, as if the ground beneath them had shifted, for none of them understood what those words meant, and none could guess why a Marine would call them out to her at this moment. The silence that followed the Marine's words was heavier than steel, and every cadet felt it press down on them. They had been mocking her seconds ago, dismissing her as a weak cadet, yet now a Marine stood tall, commanding the field with a single phrase. "Iron Wolf, stand by." The call sounded like something hidden, something not meant to be spoken unless it carried weight. Lena did not move, her body rigid, her breath steady, though inside she knew the past she had kept silent was about to be revealed in front of them all. The Marine stepped forward, his gaze unwavering, fixed on her, as though he alone knew what she was capable of. He had not spoken to any cadet since the training began, choosing silence over wasted words, yet now he broke that silence for her, and the others could not understand why. Questions filled their eyes. Was it a code? Was it a call sign? Why her? The tension snapped through the air like electricity about to strike. Lena felt the whispers of her old identity stirring within her, the name she had once carried in secret, a name earned, not given. The commander narrowed his eyes at the Marine, his voice rough and demanding. "Explain yourself, Sergeant. What is this Iron Wolf nonsense?" The Marine did not answer immediately. Instead he looked at Lena, as if waiting for her to move, waiting for her to prove herself before words could do the work. Lena breathed slowly, the moment stretching like a taut rope, one pull away from breaking. The others stared, their mocking grins gone, their laughter silenced, replaced with unease. A few stepped back, uncertain, afraid to be caught in whatever storm was rising around them. Finally Lena shifted her weight and stepped into the circle marked for the drill. The sound of her boot striking the dirt cracked the silence like thunder. The Marine gave the faintest nod, and it was enough to confirm that she was no longer simply a cadet. In his eyes she was something more. The whispers surged again, half fear, half disbelief, but none dared laugh. Now the commander raised his hand, signaling for the drill to begin, yet even he seemed uncertain of what would unfold, for the Marine had unsettled his authority without saying more than 3 words. The drill instructor barked the first command, and Lena moved faster than any expected, her body flowing through the motions, each strike, each step, as if it had been ingrained through years of discipline. Her focus never wavered, her strikes precise, her timing ruthless. Gasps echoed from the watching cadets, disbelief growing with every flawless move. But just as the sequence neared its end, a shadow appeared at the edge of the field, another figure watching, silently, unseen until now, waiting as though they too knew the name Iron Wolf. The shadow at the edge of the field drew every eye, though few dared to look directly. The figure stood with arms crossed, his presence commanding yet silent. He was no cadet and no ordinary officer. His posture spoke of countless battles, his face lined with years of service, and the insignia on his uniform told of a man who had seen war from its darkest corners. The Marine who had called out to Lena turned slightly, acknowledging the figure with a sharp nod, as if the arrival had been expected, while the cadets whispered in confusion, Lena did not falter, her body still moving through the drill, each strike, each block executed with speed that made the air crackle. Her mind sharpened, her muscles burning, but her focus never broke. She felt the weight of the figure's gaze upon her. Though she did not turn, she knew who it was even without seeing him. She remembered the harsh training grounds far from here, where every weakness had been burned away under his command. She had not spoken of it to anyone, for her history was locked in silence, but now it threatened to surface before all. The commander of the exercise noticed the figure, and his voice carried tension as he demanded identification. The man stepped forward, and the cadets recognized the marks of a decorated Marine captain. His reputation whispered in barrack stories, though few believed them real. His voice was calm. When he finally spoke, "Iron Wolf is not nonsense," he said. "Iron Wolf is earned through blood and through fire." The cadets shifted uneasily, glancing at Lena with wide eyes, but still unable to reconcile the cadet. They mocked with the legend being hinted at before them. Lena completed the drill with flawless execution, her final strike sending a wave of dust into the air. She stood tall, her breathing heavy yet steady, her eyes sharp and unyielding. For a long moment silence dominated, until the captain gave a slow, deliberate nod. He had seen her skill once again, confirmed it in front of all, yet before anyone could speak the ground shook with the roar of distant engines, not part of the training exercise. The sound grew louder, closer, filling the air with the unmistakable thunder of approaching vehicles. The cadets turned their heads, confusion turning into unease. The commander raised a hand to halt the drill, his eyes narrowing at the unexpected intrusion. The Marines present straightened their stance, sensing something far more serious than routine. Lena did not flinch. She stared beyond the dust clouds rising at the horizon, her jaw set. She knew that sound too well, and with each second it grew louder, bringing with it a storm that none of the cadets were prepared to face. The engines roared closer, shaking the ground until dust clouds rolled across the field. The cadets shielded their eyes, their formation broken by the sudden force of uncertainty. The commander shouted for order, but his voice was swallowed by the thunder approaching. Lena stood unmoved, her gaze locked on the horizon, where armored vehicles emerged one by one, dark and heavy like predators entering the hunt. The Marines exchanged quick glances, each reading the same silent message, that something far beyond training was about to unfold. The captain stepped forward, his voice low yet firm, ordering the cadets to fall back to the perimeter, but they hesitated, their pride clashing with fear, not yet understanding the danger. They muttered questions. Was this part of the drill? Was it staged? Lena knew better, her body tensed, her breath steady as memories returned of operations where the roar of such engines meant only one thing: conflict. Her eyes narrowed, the past she had hidden pressing against the surface like a blade against its sheath, ready to break free. The vehicles halted at the edge of the field, and from them stepped men in unfamiliar uniforms. Their boots struck the ground in unison, their movements sharp, precise, not the chaos of cadets, but the discipline of trained fighters. The commander barked for identification, demanding an explanation, but no answer came, only silence stretched across the field. As the strangers advanced, the Marine who had called her Iron Wolf shifted his stance, his hand brushing the edge of his gear, prepared for a moment that everyone else still denied was real. Lena recognized the insignias on the uniforms, though she wished she had not. They were not allies, they were remnants of a force she had once faced in hostile terrain far from home, a force that had marked her call sign Iron Wolf, not with respect but with fear, for they had seen what she was capable of and still carried the memory of defeat burned deep into their pride. Their presence here meant only one thing: unfinished business. The cadets muttered nervously, backing away, their mockery forgotten now, replaced with fear. Some looked at Lena, confusion in their eyes, as if demanding an explanation she could not yet give. The captain raised a hand, signaling silence, his eyes locked on the approaching figures, but Lena had already taken a step forward, her body angled toward the intruders, her mind sharpening with ruthless clarity. She knew why they were here, and she knew they would not leave without testing her again. The engines fell silent, but the storm had only begun. The strangers advanced across the field, their boots sinking into the dust as the cadets scattered to the sides, confusion painting every face. The commander shouted again, demanding they halt, but his order was met with cold silence. Their leader, a tall man with scars cutting across his face, raised a hand, and the line of fighters stopped in perfect unison, his eyes fixed on Lena, ignoring every Marine, every officer, as though no one else on that ground mattered. His voice, when it came, was low and sharp, carrying across the silence like steel scraping stone. We came for the Iron Wolf. Gasps broke out among the cadets, their disbelief boiling into fear. They turned to Lena, their earlier mockery now shattered, replaced by the weight of realization that the Marine call sign was not a joke, but a truth. Lena stood tall, her jaw set, her eyes never leaving the scarred man. She remembered him, though time had aged his face. She remembered the battle where his unit had fallen one by one under her command, the night where she had earned the title that now hunted her. He had survived, and survival had turned into obsession. The Marine who had called her name earlier stepped closer, placing himself slightly at her side, his stance protective, but his gaze steady. He knew this was no coincidence, this was a challenge drawn from history, and spilled into the present. The captain motioned for the cadets to retreat to safety, but they resisted, torn between fear and the need to witness the truth of the girl they had mocked moments ago. She was nothing more than a cadet now. She was the center of a storm none could deny. The scarred man smiled, though the expression carried no warmth, only the weight of vengeance. He spoke again, his words a promise. Today the Iron Wolf falls. He signaled with his hand, and his fighters spread out, forming a circle around Lena, and the Marines' dust swirled around their boots as tension grew sharp enough to cut. The commander barked at his men to ready themselves, but deep inside even he felt the shift of power. This was no longer his field, no longer his drill. It had become a battlefield, claimed by unfinished war. Lena inhaled slowly, her body coiled with restrained power. She felt the eyes of every cadet, every Marine burning into her, waiting for what she would do. Her silence became heavier than any words, and her stillness more threatening than a raised weapon. She knew the fight would come, and she knew blood would mark the ground before the sun set. The scarred man raised his hand to give the order, but before his command left his lips, a shot cracked through the air from the tree line. The shot echoed across the field, slicing through the tense silence like a blade through cloth. Dust burst near the boots of one of the intruders as he stumbled backward, narrowly avoiding the strike. The cadets screamed, scattering further back, while the commander shouted for cover. His voice fought against chaos, but few obeyed as fear overtook discipline. Lena did not move, her eyes locked onto the tree line where the smoke of a rifle barrel lingered. She knew that shot had not come from an enemy. It was a warning fired by someone who wanted to be seen. The Marines dropped to ready positions, scanning the perimeter, while the scarred man snarled, his patience breaking. He barked an order, and his fighters spread wider, closing their circle around Lena even tighter. The Marine who had first spoken her call sign stepped to her side, his stance unshaken, his voice low. "They want you to break," he said, "but Iron Wolf does not break." Lena gave no answer, only the faintest nod, her breathing steady, her mind sharpening as every muscle prepared for the storm. From the tree line a figure emerged, slowly, deliberate in every step. A hood shadowed his face until he reached the edge of the field and lifted it back, revealing hard eyes and a scar along his jaw. The cadets gasped again, whispers spreading fast. "Who is he?" they asked, none daring to say it aloud. The Marines recognized him at once, a sniper long thought lost in the chaos of war, a man whose name carried weight and fear. His allegiance was unclear, but the rifle in his hand spoke of precision, death waiting to strike again. The scarred leader of the intruders froze when he saw the newcomer, his expression twisted between rage and unease, as though an old wound had been reopened. He spat words heavy with venom. "You should have stayed." Buried. His men shifted, uncertain, for even they had not expected this presence on the field. The commander tried to regain control, demanding explanations, but his voice carried no power here, not anymore. The battlefield belonged to old warriors whose grudges stretched across continents and years. Lena stood between them, her heart steady though her mind raced. She knew the sniper too. She remembered nights of silent missions where survival depended on trust and aim sharper than fear. She remembered betrayal that had cost lives and left scars deeper than steel. The sniper raised his rifle slightly, though not yet pointing it, his gaze fixed on Lena, unreadable, his voice calm, yet edged with history. "You carry the name Iron Wolf still," he said, "but the question is, do you carry the truth of it?" The words from the sniper carried across the field, heavy and sharp, leaving every cadet straining to understand, their fear mixed with curiosity, for now they sensed that this moment was not about drills or ranks, but about history written in blood. Lena faced him, her eyes unwavering, her posture steady, though her heart pressed against memories she had tried to bury. The scarred leader of the intruders growled, his fists clenching at his sides. He wanted the Iron Wolf broken, yet the sniper's presence threatened to tear his plan apart. The Marine beside Lena kept his stance, ready, his hand near his sidearm. Though he did not raise it, his voice was steady when he spoke, addressing the sniper directly. "You chose a strange time to show your face." The sniper gave a slight shrug, his rifle angled low but steady. His gaze never left Lena. He said, "I did not come for them, I came for her, for the truth that was left behind." The cadets murmured louder, some believing they were witnessing betrayal, others convinced they were watching destiny unfold before their eyes. The captain of the Marines raised his voice, calling for discipline, demanding the cadets hold formation, but his command barely reached them. Their eyes were drawn to Lena, as though the field itself revolved around her. She stood still, breathing slowly, her mind weighing choices that had no easy end. The sniper's presence reopened wounds she had locked away, wounds of comrades lost on missions that were never spoken of, wounds of a bond once formed and shattered by betrayal. Her silence became heavier, with every second pressing on everyone who waited for her response. The scarred leader snarled and stepped forward, his hand rising to signal his men, but before he could command, the sniper raised his rifle, this time aimed directly at him. His voice cut the air sharp and final. Take one more step, and you will not take another. The intruders froze, caught between loyalty and fear of the man whose aim had once been legend. The tension knifed through the air, the silence ready to shatter with violence. The cadets trembled, their disbelief turning into awe, for they now saw the battlefield beneath the uniform of training. Lena finally moved, her voice low but clear, strong enough to silence both Marine and intruder alike. I did not choose this name, she said. It was forged in battles. You cannot imagine. It was carried by blood, and it was paid for with lives. She turned her gaze on the sniper, her eyes burning. If you came for truth, then stand with it, not against it. The sniper hesitated, his rifle steady, but his jaw clenched, torn between memory and mission, and in that pause, the scarred leader lunged. The scarred leader lunged forward, his movement sudden and violent, breaking the fragile silence that hung over the field. His fighters followed his motion like shadows, their boots striking the ground in unison. As they closed the circle tighter, the cadets panicked, some stumbling back, others frozen in place, unable to process that their training ground had become a battlefield. The commander roared for order, his voice lost in the chaos, while the Marines shifted instantly into combat stance, rifles rising, eyes locked sharp and unflinching. Lena did not flinch. She stepped forward into the storm, meeting the scarred leader head-on. Her body moved with a precision the cadets had never imagined, each strike, each turn carrying the weight of countless battles fought before this day. The Marine beside her struck with equal force, his training and instinct blending with hers, as though they had fought together for years. The intruders pressed hard, their numbers overwhelming, yet every clash revealed their fury, meeting steel, discipline. Dust and sweat filled the air, the sound of fists and boots colliding, echoing like thunder across the wide field. The sniper stood still, at first his rifle trained on the scarred leader, his finger brushing the trigger, yet he did not fire. His eyes remained fixed on Lena, watching every movement, every strike, as though searching for the truth he had demanded moments ago. His jaw tightened, as if war raged inside him, torn between vengeance and loyalty. The cadets watched, wide-eyed, terror mixed with awe, their voices caught in their throats as they witnessed the cadet they had mocked fight with the fury of a warrior. Lena drove forward, her strikes breaking through the defenses of two attackers, sending them crashing into the dust. She breathed steady, her eyes locked on the scarred leader, who fought with the rage of a man consumed by old wounds. He shouted her name, Iron Wolf, not as a title, but as a curse, spitting it with every strike. His fury blinded him, but his strength was relentless, his blows hammering against her guard, forcing her back step by step. The circle of battle grew tighter, the Marines pressed the intruders, yet the balance remained on the edge. The sniper finally moved, his rifle snapping upward with sudden force. His voice rang sharp across the chaos, enough the word cut through the noise, freezing fighters for a heartbeat. His aim locked, not on Lena, not on the Marines, but directly on the scarred leader. The cadets gasped, the intruders faltered, even the scarred leader himself hesitated, his rage caught in the crosshairs. But the question that burned in every eye was clear: would the sniper fire or betray? The sniper's rifle did not waver, his eye locked steady down the sight. The scarred leader froze, his breath ragged, his fists clenched, but his body still. He knew one twitch could end him in an instant. The intruders around him faltered, glancing at one another, unsure whether to attack or retreat. The cadets stood silent, their disbelief heavy on their faces, as they realized this was no drill, this was war, dragged into their midst by ghosts from a past they had never known. The Marines held their stance, weapons raised, waiting for the next move. Lena stood between them, her chest rising and falling, her eyes never leaving the sniper. Her voice, when it came, was low, steady, and edged with steel. You said you came for truth, she told him, then answer it now. Do you stand with vengeance or with honor? Her words cut through the tension, drawing every gaze. The scarred leader snarled, his voice breaking the silence. Do not listen to her. He spat the words like poison. She is the reason our brothers fell. She is the shadow that carried death across our ranks. Iron Wolf is no hero. She is a curse. The sniper's jaw tightened, the rifle pressed harder into his shoulder, his mind swirled with memories of missions long past, nights where Lena's voice had guided them through fire, and nights where betrayal had left him bleeding in the dark. He remembered comrades who never returned, and he remembered the discipline that had kept them alive at all. He breathed slowly, fighting the war inside his chest, while every second stretched into eternity. The cadets leaned forward, holding their breath, their fear replaced by a hunger to know which truth would break free. Lena did not move, her eyes unflinching, her voice calm yet sharp like a blade. I carry every death, she said, I carry every shadow that followed, but the name Iron Wolf is not built on curses, it is built on those who chose to stand and never yield. She stepped closer, her hand brushing the dust from her uniform, her eyes still locked on him. You know this because you were there, you saw it yourself. Do not bury the truth beneath your scars. The sniper blinked once, his finger resting on the trigger, then slowly, He turned the barrel away from Lena and leveled it again at the scarred leader. His voice carried steady this time. The Iron Wolf is no curse. The Iron Wolf is a survivor, and I will not betray that truth. The scarred leader roared with fury, raising his blade high, his men surging forward once more. But as the first strike fell, a thunder rolled across the field from beyond the horizon. The thunder rolling across the horizon grew louder, shaking the air with its force. The cadets turned in shock, their eyes wide as new vehicles surged into view, armored transports painted with the insignia of Allied forces. The ground trembled beneath their advanced dust clouds, swallowing the field as engines roared closer. The commander raised his voice, shouting for order, as the Marines tightened their lines, ready to strike or defend depending on what emerged. The scarred leader's eyes widened, fury mixing with the first hint of fear as he realized his timing had been broken. The Allied transports slid to a halt, soldiers leaping from their sides with precision weapons raised and pointed toward the intruders. The scarred leader cursed, spitting into the dirt, yet he did not retreat. His pride chained him to the ground, his rage refusing to let him step back. He shouted to his men to hold their ground, to show no weakness, but hesitation cracked their discipline. Some faltered, their weapons lowering as the Allied numbers swelled, pressing down like a wave too large to resist. The sniper kept his rifle trained on the scarred leader, his fingers steady, his breathing slow. His voice was calm but sharp. When he spoke, it ends here. He did not shout, he did not need to. His words carried the weight of finality. Lena stepped forward, her body still steady though blood marked her uniform from earlier clashes. She stood before the scarred man, her eyes unwavering. You came for the Iron Wolf, she said, then here I am, but you will not take me. You will not take them. The cadets watched in silence, no longer mocking, no longer doubting. They saw her now as something more than a cadet, more than a soldier. They saw her as a warrior, who carried scars heavier than metals, a warrior, who did not bend even when the storm threatened to crush her. The Marines stood firm at her side, their loyalty unquestioned, their resolve as hard as steel. The commander gave no more orders, for even he understood the field no longer belonged to him. The scarred leader roared and lunged once more, his blade flashing in the dying light, but the sniper fired. The shot cracked like lightning, striking true. The scarred man fell, his blade clattering into the dust. Silence following his collapse. His men froze, their fight drained from them, their defiance broken by the finality of his fall. One by one their weapons dropped clattering to the earth as the Allied forces moved to secure them. Lena stood still, her chest rising with heavy breath, her eyes sweeping across the field. The cadets stared at her with reverence, their disbelief shattered. The Marine who had first called her name gave a single nod, his voice low yet firm. Iron Wolf, stand down. The battle was over, but the legend had only just begun.